Okie dokie, let's talk about the Invisible Man. Ha! I wish I was smart enough to talk about that. Closer. Oh, I get that joke now. But yep, today I'm going to explain how Alan Morris managed to make an invisible suit. But first things first, I have to break one of my rules. When I started these videos, I made a rule that I would never just go, no, that's not how science works. And while I've said that people have made mistakes before, I've never fully decried anything. Well, here I gotta. Morris says that fluorescent light works by converting invisible light to visible light, which is too simplified to apply to actual science. So, I'm going to effectively pitch an invisibility suit based upon fluorescent light's real-world properties. As the only information we got about the New Adventures of Superman universe lights were, and I quote, "It is designed to reflect visible light as ultraviolet. A fluorescent light bulb turns invisible light into visible light, and invisible light becomes visible by passing through a coating of phosphorus, which really isn't enough for me to design a whole new lighting fixture, much less an invisibility suit." Alrighty, so now that we've got that out of the way, it's time to explain how fluorescent lights actually work. Fluorescent light bulbs are filled with mercury vapor. When you turn on a light, you close a circuit and allow for electric current to flow. This electric current excites the mercury vapor and produces ultraviolet or invisible photons. Once that process takes place, then UV light is absorbed by a coating of phosphorus. The phosphorus then has a fluorescence, or light emission due to absorbed electromagnetic radiation. Sweet bejiblets, that's a lot to unpack. Let's start with the excitation of an atom. I'd hazard a guess that some people will find this familiar. When you put energy into an atom, an electron will jump up by one or more states, or levels of energy. Because energy is quantized, meaning it can only affect things in finite bits, the electron will only land directly on a state. Then, when the electron drops back down, it emits a photon, because that energy that got it up to that state has to go somewhere. Pretty easy. Now, fluorescence is a bit harder to grasp. Electromagnetic radiation is the blanket term for wave and photon oscillations carrying through space. They are created when charged particles move, but continue to exist even after the particle has completed its motion. When you hit certain proteins with an EM wave, they absorb that radiation. Once they absorb that energy and excite their own atoms, they emit an opposite color on the emission spectrum. This is called the mirror rule. In the case of the fluorescent light bulb, UV radiation is mirrored to white visible light. This means the range of UV rays mirror the full range of the visible spectrum. A huge component of this process is that it's non-reversible, which will matter later. This is the last science thing, I promise. Current cloaking technology is more or less a fancy Faraday cage. Faraday cages are wire cages that stop particular frequencies of electromagnetic noise from coming through. So far, cloaking technology has only managed to hide microwaves. Alright, enough science. Let's get back to Superman. Morris's invisibility suit is not the reverse of a fluorescent light bulb, as you can't reverse the effects of fluorescence due to energy dissipation across the stages. But because the phosphorus does make criminals visible, we can determine the suits produce some photon while blocking the light underneath. We also know Clark can't see it with his X-ray vision, and the suits cause no disturbance on video. How? Well, there's another form of, quote, invisibility that we haven't discussed: projection invisibility. This form of invisibility is more or less a fancy projector. A recording device on one side of an object records a scene and projects it onto the other side of a cloak, and vice versa. This gives the illusion of invisibility, but is not very portable and not very consistent. Now, let's shove literally all of those ideas into a Frankenstein suit. As I mentioned earlier, the UV light from the excited mercury charges the fluorescent properties of the phosphorus. The suit manages to record the incoming light, send it around the enclosed object, and excite the molecules on the other side such that they emit a photon equal to that of the original recording. The light is sent through an electric current, similar to the ones that excite the mercury in the fluorescent lamp, such that there is enough power to excite the photons into existing. This highly precise process repeats over the whole of the suit and obscures the user from vision. Now, let's talk about how they were protected from Clark's X-ray vision. Part of Clark's vision is dependent on visible light. X-rays interact through the same principle of excitation we discussed earlier. But that doesn't account for the other components: Compton scattering and Rayleigh scattering. Both of these principles rely on some non-photonic interaction of particles. Compton scattering is based on the electron and the positron, while Rayleigh scattering is based upon photon interactions in other matter. The suits had to find a way to compensate for this type of scattering. With Faraday cages! As I mentioned earlier, Faraday cages are the basis of modern invisibility and cloaking technology. They work by interfering with wave signals, blocking everything from text messages to radar. Though the cloaking only functions in the microwave spectrum, it's not so far-fetched to assume that the dude who created literally all other types of invisibility could work out a Faraday cage that stopped all bands of radiation, including X-rays. So, now that we've solved the mystery of how Superman couldn't see the bad guys, let's talk about how he could. Simple. If you pour glitter on saran wrap, you see it. Superman poured, quote, phosphorus on the criminals. It was glitter, guys. We all know it was glitter. But he could have just used paint. The criminals still had mass and took up space. So when stuff would stick to their suits, they could be seen. With my suit design, both sides of the suit would record nothing but the paint color, and it would only augment the effects of the paint. Though the phosphorus may have made them shinier, as it would have maintained some of its fluorescent properties, any material would have been just as effective. But I guess that's just making light of the situation. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or requests for a theory I could tackle, contact me via my Tumblr or leave a question in the comments below.
Superboy and the Invisible Girl, son of steel and daughter of air. He's a hero, a lover, a prince, she's not there.